Good evening. On behalf of the Friends of the Hannon Library, welcome to the William Stafford Poetry Celebration. This is the third presentation in the Friends of the Hannon Library Speaker Series. The Friends raise funds for special purchases by the library, and if you're interested in joining us, application forms are on the table over here, and also you can go to the website, the Hannon Library website, and also see what our future talks will be. I want to give special thanks to Dr. Carrie Forbes, the university librarian, and her staff for setting up this room and getting the refreshments.
We finally got it right.
And usually at this point in the program, we read the SOU land acknowledgement. We want to take this moment to acknowledge that Southern Oregon University is located within the ancestral homelands of the Shasta, Takelma, Latgawa peoples who lived here since time immemorial. These tribes were displaced during rapid Euro-American colonization, the gold rush, and armed conflict between 1851 and 1856. In the 1850s, discovery of gold and settlement brought thousands of Euro-Americans to their lands, leading to warfare, epidemics, starvation, and villages being burned. In 1853, the first of several treaties were signed confederating these tribes and others together, who would then be referred to as the Rogue River Tribe. These treaties ceded most of their homelands to the United States, and in return, they were guaranteed a permanent homeland reserved for them. At the end of the Rogue River Wars in 1856, these tribes and many other tribes from Western Oregon were removed to the Siletz Reservation and the Grand Ronde Reservation. Today, the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians are living descendants of the Takelma, Shasta, and Latgawa peoples in this area. We encourage you to learn about the land you reside on and to join us in advocating for the inherent sovereignty of Indigenous people. And now it's my pleasure, and let us give a big round of applause to our Master of Ceremonies and the arranger of all this wonderful speakers we'll hear tonight, Amy Miller.
Thank you, Ken, for that rousing introduction. Thank you all for being here. A very nice crowd. Thank you all on Zoom. I don't know where am I looking for the Zoom people? Wherever you are, I'm looking somewhere up here. Thank you all for being here too. The owl thing.
Let's see.
Gotcha. Okay. That's right. I've never seen an owl before that looked like it. Let's see. I'm Amy Miller. I'll just introduce myself very quickly. I am the poetry editor of the Jefferson Journal, which is the JPR members magazine. I'm a local poet and writer for those of you who don't know me. I've been running this event for a few years now, and there's some folks here who ran it for a lot longer than me. We'll get to them later. This event is being video recorded, FYI. Everyone should be aware of that. We are required to tell you. So in case you don't want to be recorded in the open mic or something like that, you know, stay in your seat or whatever. but please do the open mic also. I really want to thank Ed Battistella, Roy Scarborough, Ken Maloney, and Alex Castro, and everyone here at the Hannon Library for their support, continuing support of this event. And for setting this up tonight. And as you can see, they had some technological heroics going on up here. So extra thanks for that.
I now have a microphone.
Oh, now you can't hear me at home.
That's the light.
Oh. So maybe I should stand closer to the mic. Okay. Tell me, is anybody listening from?
Is that any better?
Can anybody tell? Seeing if folks at home can hear. Okay, well, we'll keep going.
Okay.
See how it goes. Tonight is the 28th anniversary of this gathering hosted by Southern Oregon University. These annual William Stafford celebrations take place all over Oregon in January, and they honor the birthday of William Stafford, which is actually January 17th. This year would be his 108th birthday. These events were originally co-sponsored by the William Stafford Archives. This particular event at SOU's Hannon Library was founded in 1996 by Patty and Vince Wixon, who are both here tonight. And I want to point out this is also the first time in 3 years that we've been here in person where we could give somebody a hand like that and they could hear it. So extra joy that we're all here in the room. Patty hosted the event until about 6 years ago when she handed it over to me. And, I have often likened that to her handing me a Ming vase and saying, here, take care of this. And so I very, very carefully took it, this wonderful tradition, and have been trying to soldier on for all these years. And I know that a lot of people here tonight have been coming to this event for many years, maybe some back since the inception. So extra thanks to all of those regulars who rely on this every year. So a little bit about William Stafford. There are always a few people in the room and a few people at home who maybe don't know much about him, or maybe are at this event for the first time and kind of wondering what we're here about. William Stafford was a poet and college professor who served as the United States Poet Laureate in 1970 and 71. And he was the Oregon Poet Laureate for 15 years, a record, from 1975 to 1990. He taught at Lewis and Clark College and traveled very widely all over the world, in fact, to give workshops and talks. He died in 1993, but his influence is still strongly felt in the world of Oregon poetry. He taught and knew many people who are attending this event tonight. It always amazes me how many people were friends with him, went to workshops that he taught, were perhaps in his classes when he was a college professor. So he is still very much a living influence on poets and poetry enthusiasts now. Although Stafford was known for his poems about the Midwest and the Western United States, and his poems about nature, his work encompassed much more than that. He was also an astute observer of politics and culture. His experiences as a conscientious objector during World War II informed much of his writing and his philosophy. William Stafford published more than 65 books of poetry and prose. He wrote an estimated 20,000 poems during his lifetime, 20,000 poems. And he had a daily ritual, and this is partly why, he had a daily ritual that he did for many years of rising up before dawn and writing while lying on a couch. So a hot tip. That's what you want to do. It's very fitting that we're having this annual celebration at the Hannon Library because William Stafford was kind of a lifelong library fanatic. Like, he loved libraries, and he occasionally talked about it. Vince Wixon allowed me to borrow this quote from the notes from the talk that he did tonight. He said, I've got a few juicy ones here. Here's one. So this is something that Stafford said about when he was young, when his family was moving frequently from one small town to another in Western Kansas. In every town, he said, one of the first places his family went was to the local library. And here's what he said about that. Those Carnegie libraries packed with dynamic books, we raided them every week. My parents were not progressive. They did not try to encourage their kids. No, my parents were jealous. They grabbed the books first. Early on, I learned this disjunction between literature and life. My parents would luxuriate in stories they would be appalled to find linked to any of their own family. I remember my mother laughing till she cried when she read Elmer Bantry by Sinclair Lewis, though she was quite respectful of the clergy. This territory of the book looms so large in our lives that it seems natural that we would write, engaging in the other half of the transaction. That's from his book, You Must Revise Your Life. His writing on poetry and writing. So thank you so much to the Friends of the Hannon Library for continuing this tradition. And just a reminder that we have a beautiful Carnegie Library right here in town. Downtown, our branch library is a Carnegie Library. for the tiny percentage of you that did not know that. So the way it's going to work tonight is we are going to begin with our 4 featured poets, who will each read a poem by William Stafford, along with a poem of their own, and they'll talk a little bit about the relationship between the two. And I'm very pleased to say that tonight's 4 featured poets are Lisa Nelson, Dave Harvey, Barbara Parcham, and Kathleen Pyle. After that, we'll have our special guest poet, who is going to be Vince Buxton, who will speak for 15 minutes or so about his work with William Stafford's work.
At a minimum.
I've heard varying, sometimes it's 4 minutes, sometimes it's 40 minutes, so somewhere in there. Then we'll have a little intermission, and we'll make it about 10 minutes so that people can have some refreshments, bio break, and all that kind of thing. And then we're going to come back and do the traditional open mic, where you all are invited to read a poem by William Stafford. There's a sign-up sheet over here. I'm going to send it around if that's okay, and I'm just going to do that right now. So you know. Oop, back. And because we have people on Zoom at home who can also participate in the open mic, I think what we're probably going to do is to have the Zoom readers, Zoom people read first. I think there are a few of them all together. And I think it'll be a little easier technologically to do all of those folks first. We'll see if that's the case. This is our first time doing one of these hybrid open mics, so this will be interesting, hopefully in a good way, a really good way. And I wanted to say for the folks reading, listening from at home on Zoom, if you would like to participate in the open mic, please use the raise hand function sometime between now and the open mic so that we can get you onto the list and I can call on you when the time comes. Let's see. Okay, that's it for all the preamble. So now on to our first 4 featured poets. Our first featured poet tonight is Lisa Nelson. Lisa is a poet enjoying life here in Ashland. Her poems have appeared in Jefferson Journal, We Moon, and the Oregon Poetry Association's anthology of pandemic poems, which is a really beautiful anthology if you ever get a chance to pick it up. It's called Pandemic. It's got slashes between all of the syllables. She's also written a novel called Growing the River Dow. Please welcome Lisa Nelson.
Well, thank you all. Thank you, Amy, for inviting me to be part of this. I immediately felt very honored, and over the last few months, I've realized how privileged I am to be in this august company, both here in the room and out in the universe. Excuse me. Because I've become aware of William Stafford himself referring to a capacity to be really anywhere at the same time as being in a single room. He's got one prose poem, Something That Happens Right Now, that I heartily recommend for that perspective. I also appreciated a lot of the poems that he did honoring his father. I felt a real connection to some of those poems and the gifts that he said his father gave him. And one of the poem that I would like to read tonight is called Atwater Kent. And Atwater Kent was a man who was an inventor and also manufactured radios. And so Atwater Kent is the brand name of the radio that is in this poem. William Stafford, Atwater Kent. Late nights, the world flooded our dark house in a dim throbbing from a glowing little box. velvety sound hovering from horns, or Cab Calloway, far in a nightclub, stretched all the way to Kansas. Maybe rewarded with popcorn or fudge, maybe just exhausted by the day. We sprawled on the living room rug and were carried above our house, out over town, and spread thin by a violin. Once from Chicago, Ennio Bolognini, civilized with his cello, a whole hemisphere, and we were transformed into Italians or other great people listening in palaces. Rich in our darkness, we lay inheriting rivers of swirling millions and the promise of never a war again. It all came from the sky, heaven, London, Rome, Copenhagen. And I love how he takes an intimate scene of a family after a long day, enjoying each other's company, and then traveling together out into the audio world that was coming to them probably for the first time in history, really, to have that reach of the world so accessible for the first time. And the poem of mine that I want to accompany that also, I hope, refers and to draw attention to the human capacity to share in a variety of kinds of imaginal travels. So this poem is called Where Were We? Perhaps China via Scotland, or Kauai via Greece and Tierra del Fuego. Perhaps Alpha Centauri, or the fields beyond right and wrong. Perhaps high above the ground in a Dubai skyscraper or a hot air balloon. Perhaps among standing stones or stained glass, or at high speed in a bullet train. Perhaps circling impossible objects, or moving up a fret on a guitar, or lifting off from an evergreen branch with an eagle. Perhaps waiting for a different kind of wave to cross the sand. Perhaps among white blood cells or synapses, or hidden away in a box on a closet shelf. Where were we just then? Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Our second featured poet tonight is Dave Harvey. Dave is a native of Bakersfield who taught English in high school, middle schools, and community colleges for 38 years in California. While riding a bicycle to Alabama and back from California, Alabama and back. Those of us who know Dave know this story, but I never cease to marvel at it. During that journey, he met Carol, who is here tonight, also an educator. They were married in 1978. After moving to Oregon, he served as secretary to the board of the Oregon Poetry Association. His poems have been published in Summit, Toyon, Jefferson Journal, and Cotyledon, among others. Please welcome Dave Harvey.
You'll have to forgive the stick. My bicycle began mistreating me last year. Anybody in the market for a 27-speed Trek 520 with a upside down handlebars? Let me know after the meeting.
You did.
Well,
The mic is on your left.
okay, thank you. Can y'all hear me better then? All right. Well, when I taught down in Eureka, I took my 8th grade classes through my favorite of Mark Twain's novels, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And I thought I'd start with that because it mentions a journey. And then I found out that Dr. Stafford had made a journey similar and wrote a poem about that. So it seemed like they went together. So this is mine. It ended halfway down Arkansas. They were floating down the river. And at the end of the novel, Huck makes a pronouncement. And I wrote this poem called What Happens Next? At the end of the book, Huck says, I reckon I got the light out for the territory ahead of the rest. I think he got there and met a lot of interesting people, Indians and owl hoots, buffalo hunters and cowboys. But he kept clear of people like the king, the duke, and his father. And then finally, I think he drifted all the way to California. I used to run into him down among the trees of the Kern River's bottoms. He'd be fishing with a trot line or skinny dipping with us when a bunch of us decided to go bare ass in that snow-cold river of our home river. The cries of killdeer and the smell of witch hazel made him say, the Kern felt and smelt a lot like the Mississippi, but she was a lot smaller. He was short and kind of scrawny and never gave his right name, not to nobody. But he was friendly and he seemed to have a good heart. Well, I was fascinated to find out that Dr. Stafford had to make a westward journey. And when I saw the title, I knew this had to be the poem I would read, called The Move to California. Starts the summons from Indiana. In the crept hours on our street, repaired by snow that winter night, from the west, an angel of blown newspaper was coming toward our houses out of the dark. Under all the far street lights and along all the near house fronts, silence was painting what it was given, that in that instant I was to know. Starting up, mittened by sleep, I thought of the sweeping stars in the wide night, remembering as well as I could the hedges back home that ministered to contemplated fields, and other such limits as hold the time near, for I felt among strangers on a meteor, trying to learn their kind of numbers to scream together in a new kind of algebra. That night, the angel went by in the dark, but left a summons, try farther west. And it did no good to try to read it again. There are things you cannot learn from manyness. That's one of my favorite new words. Past the middle of the continent, wheat fields turning and God's hand green to pale to yellow, like the season gradual, we approached the summit, map of all our vision, prepared to face the imminent map and behold the new land. And we stopped there, neutral, standing on the Great Divide. Alpine flora, lodgepole pine, a little tree just 3 feet high, shared our space between the clouds, opposing all the veering winds. Unhurried, we went down. Water leaps down from rock or lava near Hagerman, piles down riverward over rock, reverberating tons of explosive shock out of their stilled world. We halted there once. In that cool, we drank. Far back and where we had to go lay our jobs in Idaho, lying far from such water. At work, when I vision that sacred land, the vacation of mist over its rock wall, I go blind with hope. That plume fall is bright to remember. Along Highway 40, those who wear green glasses through Nevada travel a ghastly road in unbelievable cars and lose pale dollars under violet hoods when they park at gambling houses. I saw those martyrs, all sure of their cars in the open and always believers in any handle they pulled. Racked on an invisible cross and staring at green tables. While the stars were watching, I crossed the Sierras in my old Dodge, setting the speedometer, letting it measure God's kindness, and slept in the wilderness on the hard ground. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Great to see you in person. First time in a long time. Our third featured poet tonight is Barbara Parcham. Barbara lives on a small farm in Southwest Oregon. She enjoys gardening and wilderness hiking and volunteered for several years at a wildlife rehabilitation facility caring for raptors and wolves, right? Dream job. Her poems have appeared in Aerial Chart, Jefferson Journal, Is Acoustic, Cirque, Windfall, Turtle Island Quarterly, and others. Her first book of poetry, titled What Remains, was published by Flowstone Press, which is right here in Oregon, great press, in October 2021. She is presently at work on a second book. Here is Barbara Parcham.
Thank you for that introduction. I wanted to start by thanking you, Amy, for inviting me to participate. This is my very first William Stafford event, so I'm pleased to be here and excited to hear from everyone. I'm going to just jump right in and read William Stafford's poem first, the one that I chose. The title of the poem is Atavism. Sometimes in the open, you look up where birds go by, or just nothing, and wait. A dim feeling comes. You were like this once. There was air and quiet. It was by a lake or maybe a river. You were alert as an otter and were suddenly born, like the evening star, into wide, still worlds, like this one you have found again for a moment in the open. Something is being told in the woods. Piles of shadow lead away, a branch waves. A pencil of sunlight slowly travels its path. A withheld presence almost speaks, but then retreats, rustles a patch of brush. You can feel the centuries ripple, generations of wandering, discovering, being lost and found, eating, dying, being born. A walk through the forest strokes your fur, the fur you no longer have. And your gaze down a forest aisle is a strange, long plunge, dark eyes looking for home. For delicious minutes, you can feel your whiskers, wider than your mind, a way out over everything. I chose this poem because I think it illustrates, along with much of his other writing, his deep connection to the natural world. And that's something that speaks to me because most of my inspiration comes from the natural world. My husband and I have lived on the same piece of land for 47 years. And what this means is I'm out in nature virtually every day, whether it's bird watching or weeding the garden or hiking in the forest. It means a lot to me. It also means that we've noticed over these 47 years that there's been huge change, a lot of extra ongoing deforestation, clear cutting, spraying. And it's really hard to look up at the mountains behind our house and not think about the changes
and how what we are witnessing is indicative of how, as a species, we've somehow lost our way. So I never had the opportunity to meet William Stafford, but when I discovered this poem, I immediately felt a sense of kinship. Because I think he's describing a different path, one that the rest of us can relate to. He's describing a return to connection and to belonging. The definition of atavism means a tendency to revert to something ancient or ancestral. Stafford reminds us of our origins when he says, "A walk through the forest strokes your fur, the fur we no longer have." And then he invites us back into the presence, I think, and mystery of a place we once knew. In his words, "Your gaze down a forest aisle is a strange, long plunge, dark eyes looking for home." So I'd like to close with a poem that I wrote. I just wrote it last year, but it was inspired by an event that happened when I was very young in a very remote and wild place in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. And I think it might reflect some of what I was just talking about. The title of the poem is Cipher. The aurora borealis this first time begins as the loons are yodeling crazily from the far shore across the lake, not yet frozen in this northern winter. It appears as a luminous semicircle stretching the entire horizon like a giant planet gone off course, ready to collide with Earth. As it grows and looms closer, we huddle on the pier, caught between fear and fascination, as I keep asking, what is it? Until the edges begin breaking up, lazy streamers of green, blue, and purple, veils shifting and shrouding, slow motion, exquisite and impossible across the palette of northern sky. Too soon the sky returns to constellation, the loons settle for the night, and adrenaline slows in the arteries. The mystery solved, but not yet ordinary. Another nugget of clarity to join the others, small enough to fit in the pocket and pull out when the evening news proves too much to face yet again. Something shiny a crow would stash, a prism turning in the sun, a crystal found half buried in the sand, a bit of gold chain glinting at the garden gate, or this half hour of ethereal lights, like some cosmic cipher hovering over our wounded planet, fragile after all, but not yet lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Our fourth featured poet tonight is Kathleen Pyle. Kathleen has pursued careers in horticulture, advertising, and natural history education. She began writing poetry and plays in grade school. One of her most magical life experiences was attending a candlelit William Stafford birthday celebration in the remote high desert town of Burns, Oregon, where they have them too. Kathleen served as a board member and newsletter editor for the Oregon Poetry Association. Her poetry has been published in Jefferson Journal, recognized by OPA, and her poem Hilltopping was part of the BLM Signs of Spring display on Lower Table Rock Trail in spring 2022. That's pretty cool. As a hiker, poet, and photographer, she finds constant inspiration in the rugged beauty of the Klamath-Siskiyou Mountains. Please welcome Kathleen Pyle.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for everything. And Vincent, Patty, for starting this celebration. Happy birthday, William Stafford. This night honoring you is a bright candle flame in the dark month of January, reminding us that poetry is a powerful force for uniting people, communities, and even our nation. We can be comforted by the fact we have a president fond of quoting Seamus Heaney. I've chosen a poem, Assurance, to read. Exemplifies what I most admire about Stafford's poetry: authenticity. His voice is always real and down to earth. He has a solid sense of self, but more importantly, self-acceptance. Also, intimacy. He's always carrying on a conversation with the reader. His approach is never high-handed. Most importantly to me, he knows how to pay attention. He's attuned to the natural world, the moment, the river. This power of observation is probably something that he inherited from his father, whose power of paying attention is described in the poem Listening. So here is Assurance. You will never be alone. You hear so deep a sound when autumn comes. Yellow pulls across the hills and thrums, or the silence after lightning before it says its names. And then the clouds' wide-mouthed apologies. You were aimed from birth. You will never be alone. Rain will come, a gutter filled, an Amazon, long aisles. You never heard so deep a sound, moss on rock, and years. You turn your head, that's what the silence meant. You're not alone. The whole wide world pours down. And this is the poem that I wrote, inspired by Assurance. It's called Opening Act. Leaves will fall like rain, fly away like birds. Then each tree finally bare, ready to be wrenched, twisted, twined in orange, gold, or turquoise, wound round into towers, dormant bodies bound, bundled, stacked for winter hauling along the interstate. Here at the nursery, we await the semis. We'll baptize this new season's crop with labels: Chanticleer, Celestial, Venus, Cloud 9, Persian Spire. As birds unquestioning build their nests above, we'll answer tree questions below. How fast will they grow? How tall? Are their roots invasive? But on this silent winter morning, I simply snip the twine, reaching higher, tango tilting, a midwife cradling spring, I cut the final knot. Listen, a sharp snap of release, then sighs, a breath as each branch eases into what it aims to be. In place, in joy. My own ribs uncaging, heart singing, person, the purpose.
People giving you a little preview of the practice. Come up here. Too much technology on this bench. Thank you, Kathleen. So next up is our special guest poet, Vincent Wixon. Vince's most recent book of poetry is Laying By. In the late 1980s and early 90s, he co-produced videos on William Stafford. And after Stafford's death, Vince and Patty Wixon helped set up the Stafford Archives, which to this date carries on the legacy of Stafford's papers and works. And there's still a lot of active work going on, keeping these materials safe, I would say, safe for future generations. Vince assisted in making the first cut of poems for Stafford's book, The Way It Is, selected in new poems. Probably some of you have that in your book bag tonight or something like that, one of his most popular books. He also co-edited 3 other Stafford books, Crossing Unmarked Snow, The Answers Are Inside the Mountains, and Sound of the Axe. In 2014, Vince and Patty Wixon were honored with the Holbrook Literary Legacy Award from Oregon Literary Arts for their contributions to the literary life of Oregon. Here's Vince Wixon.
About put that down in UL or something. Don't put that on picture. Yes. Oh, it is. Never mind. Read it. Call you. Great to see so many people here. I had no idea that there'd be such a big crowd in person. Can people hear me in the back? Amy's comments welcoming us and about Stafford and making comments about libraries. So I thought this photo from 1986 might fit. That's William Stafford, and the Tweety guy is me. And we're on the steps of the Carnegie Library in El Dorado, Kansas, where Stafford went to community college before he went to the University of Kansas. And it's in Kansas, it's pronounced El Dorado, if you're ever there. A little about Stafford's reading habits from a conversation in the late 80s. He told us that on his most recent trip for readings and workshops, he'd taken with him Einstein's Universe by Nigel Calder, which was published in 1979, a new translation of Pascal, one of his favorite writers, and along with Nietzsche, helped inspire Stafford to write hundreds of aphorisms in his daily writings. And you know some of them. They're like things like this. It takes all kinds to make a world, but there's an oversupply of some. About the pessimists, how can they know that much? Talking about poetry is like talking about love. It's a long way from doing it. And the third book he took on that tour was a collection of Chekhov's stories. He didn't take any poetry books. He read plenty of poetry, especially when he was asked to. People sent him books. He judged contests, that sort of thing. But prose was his preference, as I suppose it is for most of us. He liked big novels. Quote, "My appetites are for things that don't end, that go on forever. Scott novels, Cooper novels, George Eliot. I just love her books. I like to get involved in big, big things, the kind of writing that delivers groceries." I've been thinking a lot about Stafford in the last few months. This gathering tonight, a biography underway. Steve Paul, whose most recent biography is Literary Alchemist, The Writing Life of Evan S. Cannell. And just Cannell, you may know his work. His best known novels are Mr. Bridge and Mrs. Bridge and Son of the Morning Star, a really fine book about Custer. And last fall, Steve made his second trip from Kansas City, where he lives, worked for the Kansas City Star for 40 years, to the Stafford Archives at Lewis and Clark College. And he's made a detailed outline for his book. And he's drafted a couple of chapters, one on Stafford's early life in Kansas, and one on Stafford's work at the Library of Congress when he was what's now known as Poet Laureate. And James Armstrong of Winona State University in Minnesota has been doing a lot of work with Stafford and philosophy and Stafford's place in American literature. And there are a few copies, a couple left of the Friends of Stafford newsletter, and there are articles in there by Steve Paul and by James Armstrong, and then one by me, and I'll read some poems from that are in there, but some of them will also be on the screen. That images of William Stafford, as some of you picked that up, Patty and I are trying to clear some things out, and it's in a filing cabinet for like 28 years, so I thought, so there are a couple more left, at least one, so take it, please. My article in the Friends of William Stafford newsletter is on poems not in the main selected Stafford the way it is, that I think should be there. And I'll read the last three stanzas of one of those poems, A Farewell in Tumbleweed Time. It's a fairly long poem, and it was collected in The Rescued Year, published in 1966. I was going to come back someday after the fragments, and I found a new home and offered to the indifferent air a secret no one there could use at the time. About 4 some winter's day, somewhere roads don't go, where hills come down, I'd hold out the unfinished years of our life and call for the steadfast rewards we were promised. I'd speak for all the converging days of our town. Then it would be like the flood of Christmas that preserved every stone and set all the stars on the hill where the farm leaned when we came out Main Street with so much richness we couldn't ever give it away. But all the rest of the time after Father died, I haven't been able to tell anyone half of the things we carried around in that old car and couldn't say. And there are people now I couldn't confront, even this far, without dislodging everything in the West. A new time is here now. I have come back. And though I speak with less noise, all the little clods lie stunned with effort to remember. For again, it is tumbleweed time. They come to judge us again. I know that the weakness we blame in ourselves is in the judgment we use. I know what I remember wheels endlessly here to say the same thing. And I know it is time to cut loose off downwind free, like the eagles that keep the mountains clean. In a conversation with Richard Hugo in 1973, Stafford says this about the poem. I realize that the poem is trying out a fairly standard idea, but even so, it's not a standard idea for the poet till he tries it out. Here in this poem, I catch myself saying this fairly common thing. It's time to cut loose and get out, let the next thing happen. So this poem tries out the feeling of that kind of standard action. Many of the poems I've written have been like trying out an alternative in life rather than centering on something I'd bet my life on. I wouldn't bet my life on any one of my poems, but all of them, yeah. Richard Hugo likened the poem to one you know well, The Farm on the Great Plains, collected in Stafford's first book, West of Your City, in 1960, and it's not on the screen. The Farm on the Great Plains. The telephone line goes cold. Birds tread it wherever it goes. A farm back of a great plain tugs an end of a line. I call that farm every year, ringing it, listening, still. No one is home at the farm. The line gives only a hum. Someday I will ring the line on a night at last the right one, and with an eye tapered for braille from the phone on the wall, I will see the tenant who waits, the last one left at the place. Through the dark, my braille eye will lovingly touch his face. Hello, is mother at home? No one is home today. But father, he should be there. No one is here. But you, are you the one? Then the line will be gone because both ends will be home. No space, no birds, no farm. Myself will be the plain, wise as winter is gray, pure as cold posts go. pacing toward what I know. Hugo compared the two poems in that, quote, once the total connection with the past is broken, then you are able to face up to what you know, and there's no going back. To which Stafford replied, there was another thing I was thinking of, physically leaving in life. That can be done. But in a poem like that, it's as if I can go back in order to check whether I'm ever really going to be able to go away. And I realize I'm not. Every time I go back there, I belong there. That past, in some ways, physically, I can't escape it. I can't escape it, excuse me. I can't escape it, but in my life, I'll never escape it. And I'd say that's how it feels to me. Without that feeling, I wouldn't have many poems. And before I get too far away from a farewell and tumbleweed time, I want to mention clods. The final stanza includes the line, all the little clods lie stunned with effort to remember. Clods appears in another Stafford poem about real life, Earth Dweller, written in the same decade, the 60s. It was all the clods at once become precious. It was the barn and the shed and the windmill, my hands, the crack Arlie made in the axe handle. Oh, let me stay here humbly, forgotten, to rejoice in it all. Let the sun casually rise and set. If I have not found the right place, teach me, for somewhere inside, the clods are vaulted mansions. Lines through the barn sing for the saints forever. The shed and the windmill rear so glorious, the sun shudders like a gong. Now I know why people worship, carry around magic emblems, wake up talking dreams they teach to their children. The world speaks. The world speaks everything to us. It is our only friend. Now, Stafford might say that this poem makes quite a claim, that he was trying something out, but it's a claim he often makes. Now, I'm drawn to these poems partly because of my background in farming and little towns, because they are fine poems and mysterious. I don't understand everything. And poems work by leaving things out, such as explanations. And there's a transformation in this poem. Everything becomes precious, the clods, the barn, hands, axe handle, the kind of epiphany that leads the reader, the speaker, to say, now I know why people worship, because the world speaks. The world speaks to us. It is our only friend. An audience at a reading asked Stafford if he was religious. His answer, yes, but probably not in the way you think. And the transformation in Earth Dweller is here on earth, not in heaven, some other hazy place. And with it comes a kind of responsibility he writes of often. For example, in a justly famous poem, A Ritual to Read to Each Other. It's likely someone here will read that entire poem tonight, so I'm just going to read the opening stanza and the last two. The poem begins, if you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, the pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. The last two stanzas. And so I appeal to a voice, to something shadowy, a remote region in all who talk. Though we could fool each other, we should consider, lest the parade of our mutual life get lost in the dark. For it is important that awake people be awake, or a breaking line may discourage them back to sleep. The signals we give, yes or no, or maybe, should be clear. The darkness around us is deep. As you all know, many of Stafford's poems ponder hard facts and choices.
Slide 6.
Oh yeah, thanks, Patty. Oh, yeah. And that's one of the reasons we read his poems. In 1993, Robert Bly, on the right there, wrote about a ritual to each other. Quote, of all the American poets of the last 30 years, I think William Stafford broods most about community, the mutual life we share. Relationships bring responsibilities, as we all know, and being awake, speaking, and listening are constants in Stafford's poems. In his most famous poem, before the speaker makes a difficult decision about a deer, he can hear the wilderness listen. In a ritual to read to each other, Stafford calls for clear signals. Perhaps only he would include, along with yes or no, maybe. There's a lot of maybe in my world, he said. I want to say a word about this photo. Is of Stafford and Robert Bly taken in Marshall, Minnesota in the mid-'80s at a rural writers conference. And they were asked to talk about how a person sustains a long career in writing. Stafford's first comment, don't drink. I'm struck more and more by Stafford's agile mind, deep mind. He was a delight in conversations and interviews, amusing, entertaining, unassuming, light on his feet, willing to talk about his poems and poetry in general, strong in his beliefs, but not programmatic. Let's talk recklessly, he would say. I'll read a few Stafford statements. Engaging with material is a phrase he often used to explain his writing life. Quote, writers may not be special, sensitive, or talented in any usual sense. They're simply engaged in sustained use of a language skill we all have. I am never without material. It seems that even if I write as fast as I can, I could never catch up with my life. I have an appetite for finding that perfect fit of language with the experience of life as you're having it right now. Every now and then, I can break off a piece of that and call it a poem. Some people have ideas before they write. For me, it's the other way around. The poems that stay interesting to me are the ones I haven't conquered. I even have a phrase for this. Wood that can learn is no good for a bow. Think about that for a second. Wood that can learn is no good for a bow. Some of my poems can't learn. They're good for a bow. They've got something in them that wasn't predicted. I just feel better about them. And about standards in writing. I'm suspicious of the ability of any fallible human being to erect some kind of standard and say, this is it. The realm of possibility is more glorious than that. That would be one way to put it. The closing in on some kind of hierarchy is a function of the limitedness of the judges more than it is the quality of the work. I have a yen in writing to get something that doesn't have any good ideas in it. It just doesn't have any mistakes. And I'll end my part of tonight's program by reading 3 short poems I would put in a new edition of The Way It Is, new and selected poems, if there ever is a new edition. And I'm hopeful. And there's a biography on the way. There's going to be a critical work. There's continued interest in Stafford and his poems by an awful lot of people, so it could happen. Yes, Patty. Slide. Butterflies in the radiator grill. Arrayed like Solomon, the radiator grill snores into itself blue, brown, yellow, gray, all the colors that the flowers of the field in their innocence, their carelessness betray. Lie as we pass, a screen takes us. There are lines we cross like warnings on our way, so cruel that summer sings out. Storms, we all travel toward one big storm someday. Butterflies in the Radiator Grill was first collected in a chapbook in 1969, and then Paul Merchant and I included it in Sound of the Axe, a collection of Stafford aphorisms and aphoristic poems. William and Dorothy Stafford loved dogs, lived with several, and Stafford wrote a number of poems about dogs. He said, I have this continual impulse to embrace with my thought and with my feelings more than human, to pay attention to dogs, to trees, to the wind, to shadows, to rocks. It's all alive, is my feeling, and it's a mistake to stay just with human society with your attention. This poem, Coming Back, was first published in Poetry Magazine in 1986. Near your face, a breath, your dog, it's day. Into those dark eyes, receiver wells, responsible for all there is, you fall and come back new, rushed by such deep love, the world fades. The world fades, and rushed by such deep love comes back new. You fall, responsible for all there is, those dark eyes, receiver wells, near your face, a breath, your dog, it's day. In a conversation about that poem, he said, I think I can remember that trance-like feeling of following it into the center of the poem and then following the center of the poem back out by successive steps the way it went in. While I was writing, it just occurred to me, it seemed right. And finally, a prose poem. Stafford didn't write many. This one was anthologized in Models of the Universe, an anthology of the prose poem in 1995. And prose poems have been around for pushing 200 years now, and they're very popular right now. You can ask Amy, her most recent book. Generally, they are compressed like line poems, but have a tendency toward a flamboyant invention and metaphor and leaps and logic and surrealism and surprise, and that's partly because they look like prose. The right time. All the lies in our town ran to the river one summer night and jumped in. It was after a band concert in the park, full moon, fireflies, ice cream on the way home. And like a hive of bees that the lies just up and left, they couldn't stand it anymore. I sat on the front step and watched through the moonlight hours. Owls along the street began to mourn. A glow at every corner, our town stretched out and slept. A window in Jane's house on the corner shone and then dimmed. In heavy darkness out there, my teachers were sleeping, and the mean cop who chased us from the fairgrounds, and the bankers and merchants and mothers in their mysterious lives. After that night, I forgave and was forgiven. The courthouse, the school, parents, police, these never frightened me afterward. When we live again, when Crazy Horse comes back and the buffalo dot the hills, one little shadow will wait off to the side. It will be staring through a thin row of trees at a full moon floating and waiting while lights go off in a town late and still on a summer night. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Vince. And thank you again to our four featured poets tonight. So before we take our little intermission, first, does somebody have the sign up? It's over there. Great, I'll get it from you in a minute. A refresher for the folks zooming in from home. If you would like to take part in the open mic, you want to use the raise hand feature. Now would be good between now and the time when we start the open mic so that we can get you on the list and I can call you when the time comes. Let's see. So we're going to take about 10 minutes or so. Get yourself some refreshments and we'll see you back in 10. It's going to be Kenny Maloney, who is up here introducing the show to begin with. And he's bringing ukulele.
You can see the mountains drop there. A little bit blue. Rivers yearn through the canyons, and storms punctuate even the summer day. Sometimes whole sides of the world lean against where you live. Just being there is a career. And the danger is in forgetting that sometimes you might go away. That was home state.
And that was Kenny Maloney. Our next open mic reader is Pepper Trail.
Well, when the list got to me, there were about half a dozen people signed up, but the second slot was blank. Now I know why. No one wants to follow Kenny. So this is a short poem, but I thought it was appropriate for the time, for the day, for the week. Found in a storm. A storm that needed a mountain met where we were. We woke up in a gale that was reasoning with our tent, and all the persuaded snow streaked along, guessing the ground. We turned from that curtain down, but sometime we will turn back to the curtain and go by plan through an unplanned storm, disappearing into the cold, meanings in search of a world.
Thanks, Pepper. Next up is Dan Kaufman.
Well, it's equally dangerous to follow Pepper. This poem has maybe in it, so thanks for the prompt. First lines are really important in poems, and this Stafford poem, first lines, got me right away. This is 2 evenings. 1. Back of the stride of the power line, a dozen antelope dissolved into view. But we in the car were fading away. We were troubled about being ahead of time. The world became like a slow mirror, clear at first, till images welled as if decisions could raise the sun or eyes build faces in the quicksilver. 2. Today toward night, when the bats came out, flyers so nervous they rest by turning and foreknow collision by calling out maybe. We anticipated something we did not expect. Counting the secretaries coming out of the building, there were more people than purposes. We stared at the sidewalk looking for ourselves like antelope fading into the evening.
Thanks, Dan. Next on our list is Joan Peterson, who is on the fence about whether she's reading. Do you have a decision?
Well, Vince talked me into it.
Oh, right.
No, he stole my thunder.
Joan Peterson.
Well, I've been a Stafford junkie more than half of my life. And as you can tell, I've lived a long time. So, yeah, I've just really been so fond of William Stafford's poetry, and I followed a lot of his workshops, and so he's meant a lot to me in my life. he also loved dogs, and so do I. And so I had found his poem about the dog in Vince's Friends of William Stafford newsletter, which you all should subscribe to. It's just a wonderful newsletter. And he has this collection of poems that he's been working on, or Vince has been working on, to put into a new selected poetry book of Stafford's, similar to The Way It Is. So I wanted to read Coming Back, which Vince already read, but I think if you hear it in a different voice, maybe you'll hear it again in a new way. Coming back. Near your face, a breath, your dog. It's day. Into those dark eyes, receiver wells responsible for all there is. You fall and come back new, brushed by such deep love, the world fades. The world fades, and brushed by such deep love, comes back new. You fall, responsible for all there is. Those dark eyes, receiver wells, near your face, a breath, your dog, it's day. And I don't think Amy realizes this, but I'm going to introduce Dot Fisher-Smith, to read, or to say a poem by Stafford, The Way It Is.
I really appreciate this opportunity that came to me. It's one of my favorite poems. The way it is. There's a thread you follow. Goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder what it is you are pursuing. It's hard to explain about the thread. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Things happen. People get old and die. People get hurt or die, and you suffer and grow old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread.
That was the wonderful Dot Fisher-Smith, everyone. Our next reader, our next open mic person is going to be Jeff Westergaard.
I'm so happy to follow everyone who's just spoken. I'm going to make two plugs. I'm a third grade teacher in talent, and I want to invite anyone who would like to come in and help urge me to do more poetry with the kids. We are laboring under new curriculum that is intense, and while the kids are doing more writing, they're not doing enough poetry and creative writing, and we lack volunteers since COVID coming in and helping. So find your neighborhood school and just ask who's a teacher who would like a volunteer to come in and help have a little table on the side, 2 to 6 students working on a writing project. There's someone at every school who will say yes to that. And my other plug is I'm the program director at KSKQ Radio, and I want more poetry on the air, and I also want more elders' voices, and I welcome anyone to contact us at the station and say, I'd like to be on the air, I'd like to help out. We'd love to have people read on our morning shows each morning. So that's 89.5 on your FM dial and KSKQ online. I'm going to read for you at the Unnational Monument along the Canadian border. It's a little fragment. And I have a radio show on Tuesday nights called Carry It On. And I love Eliza Gilkison's song, which is to this poem. This is the field where the battle did not happen, where the unknown soldier did not die. This is the field where grass joined hands, where no monument stands. And the only heroic thing is the sky. Birds fly here without any sound, unfolding their wings across the open. No people killed or were killed on this ground, hallowed by neglect and an air so tame that people celebrate it by forgetting its name.
Thank you, Jeff. Our probably final open mic reader, and I hope that I'm getting your name right, is Terry Brain. Okay.
This is a poem that I have taught many times I used to teach English and history in northeastern Oregon. And I taught this poem many times and read it at a couple of William Stafford's events. It's called Report to Crazy Horse. Can you hear me? All the Sioux were defeated. Our clan got poor, but a few got richer. They fought 2 wars. I did not take part. No one remembers your vision or even your real name. Now the children go to town and like loud music. I married a Christian. Crazy Horse, it is not fair to hide a new vision from you. In our schools, we are learning to take aim when we talk. And we have found out our enemies. They shift when words do. They even change and hide in every person. A teacher here says, hurt or scorn people are places where real enemies hide. He says, we should not hurt or scorn anyone, but help them. And I will tell you in a brave way, the way Crazy Horse talked, that teacher was right. I will tell you a strange thing. At a rodeo, close to the grandstand, I will tell you a strange thing. At a rodeo close to the grandstand, I saw a farm lady scared by a blown piece of paper. And at that place, horses and policemen were no longer frightening, but suffering faces were, and the hunched over backs of the old. Crazy Horse, tell me if I am right. These are the things we thought we were doing something about. In your life, you saw many strange things, and I will tell you another. Now I salute the white man's flag. But when I salute, I hold my hand alertly at the heartbeat and remember all of us and how we depend on a steady pulse together. There are those who salute because they fear other flags or mean to use ours to chase them. I must not allow my part of saluting to mean this. All of our promises, our generous sayings to each other, our honorable intentions, those I affirm when I salute. At these times, it is like shutting my eyes and joining a religious colony at prayer in the gray dawn, in the deep aisles of a church. Now I have told you about new times. Yes, I know others will report different things. They have been caught by weak ways. I tell you straight, the way it is now, it is our way, the way we were trying to find. The choke cherries along our valleys still bear a bright fruit. There is good pottery clay north of here. I remember our old places. When I pass the mussel shell, I run my hand along those old grooves in the rock.
Thank you, Cherry. Peter is going to announce an event coming up, and then I'll make another announcement. And we'll be done.
This is a
art poetry event that I'm going to announce. And the idea, I'm an artist, by the way. I'm known as more as an artist than a poet, though I just recently dabbled in poetry. But the idea is for artists to paint a poem, and Dan, thank you for Dan, the word is ekphrastic poetry. And in reciprocation, the poet is supposed to write a poem about a painting. And then we put on a show. We have a reading where each poet is talks about the painting, and we've done it 3 times or 2 times, and the third one I want to invite you all to Pascal Winery on February 10th, and the poetry reading will start at 7, and there will be the show. You'll be able to have the poem and the painting together. Of course, we want to sell it too. So it will be up for a month at Pascal Winery. And actually, there are people in the audience who participated in this one. Marisa was my choice in 2017. And I think it was Prize Peach was the name of your poem, Marisa. And it was a lot of fun. So recently in July, we were very lucky to have Betty LeDuc and Lawson Anata as, of course, the people came to hear them. And there were 4 of us other somewhat unknown people there. And it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. So this one, Betty LeDuc will also be participating in. So I am thinking it'll be on for a month, but I am thinking it would be great if this tradition would carry on, just like Stafford. I mean, I could see this happening annually, where we not just have 5 poets and 5 artists, perhaps double that or triple that. And it's a challenge. It's see what you can do in your medium and what's your reality and how does your reality reflect in so, another way of looking at it. And also Pepper Trail too. Pepper Trail was one of the poets who was represented. He wasn't there. He was on some trip somewhere looking at birds somewhere. And so anyway, I would like for you to think about whether you would like to participate in an event like this.
Peter, can they contact you somehow, or is the web page?
Yes.
Why don't you, if you would like to find out more about it, Peter will be here for a little bit longer and you can talk to him.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Thanks a lot. And I have one more announcement before the evening is over, and that is that the talent open mic without a mic, as it's now known, is back in action live. And that is every month, the 2nd Thursday of the month. Starts at 7 p.m. It's at the Talent Library in the community room. I think that's the big room. Dan Coffin, who's been invoked many times tonight, is sitting right there with the blue mask on. He knows about it. Or find me and I'll point you to Dan. If you want to know more, 2nd Thursday of the month.